Hey everyone, I'm Benjamin, and welcome to my book club. We just finished the next section of Forge of God by Greg Bear. Let's get into it. So we just finished chapters 30 through 37 of the book. And while some interesting stuff has happened, these weren't the best chapters. The previous couple videos, I think, were a bit better. But we'll just get right into it quickly with a quick recap. So first up, we've got the 4 people that were being held captive by the government because they discovered the guest in the spaceship. That's Shaw, Minnelli, Reshaw, and Stella. And they've finally been released. The Air Force has told them that they expect that they'll get sued by them, and they're willing to, help out with some legal fees, help out with sorting out book deals or movie deals, basically just trying to get away with it. The guy in charge of the base, the Colonel Fan, muttered to himself that this was the biggest disaster of his career. But some of them, Minnelli especially, are struggling with like a severe case of cabin fever. Even now that they've been released, Minnelli is stressed out and he's not all there. And it does seem that it's less to do with the alien itself and more to do with the stress of being held captive. Shaw himself is struggling with thoughts of whether he's going to go back to his job or whether he's going to go travelling or something. And that's all fine. That was interesting, good to see them out, but nothing great here. Next up, we have some stuff that the aliens have been doing. So first off, there have been flashes across the ecliptic overnight during November. And astronomers have decided and discovered that this is asteroids being destroyed in the asteroid belt. As of yet, we don't know why. Some people are asking if it's connected. I think obviously it's all connected. Maybe there's several different races of alien at play here, but yeah, the asteroid belt appears to be being destroyed or mined or something. We also have reports from a cargo ship of a second object being dropped into the ocean, as well as confirmation for both the first and the second object of the seismic events on the opposite side of the planet. So we've confirmed that the sort of mass and size of these objects, which are both too small to be black holes, according to the book. One of the scientists in the book claims that objects of this smaller mass as a black hole would be very short-lived and would have, dissipated by now already. The second object is different than the first, however. It seems to be bigger, and it's letting off a lot of radiation. The crew of the cargo ship that discovered it, saw it going down, all have radiation burns. They're losing their hair. They've got radiation sickness. So that's something else there. Currently, the two objects are orbiting each other in the mantle of the Earth, orbiting around the center of the Earth with each other. It's been likened by one of the scientists, as a fuse. As in, the idea is that it's a fuse controlled by gravity that at a certain point in time, that you can figure out by math, they're going to touch each other in the core, come to a stable orbit with each other, and something will happen. As of right now, I'm not sure. It seemed to suggest in the book that at least one of the objects is like a few centimeters wide, but hundreds of meters long, like a big long snake. So I've got no idea what they could be. Presumably it's going to end up being some sort of exotic particle, but I don't know. Also, another thing is the sea level has dropped by 1 centimeter globally, and the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere has risen by 1%. One of the scientists suggests that maybe seawater is being converted into hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygen is being let out into the atmosphere, and something's being done with the hydrogen, presumably being taken for fuel, perhaps. We also learn of a cult called the Forge of God, or the Forge of Godders, who believe in what the president was saying, that this is Armageddon and that we should all just accept it and move on. And apparently they've gathered in massive numbers, like 10,000 in Death Valley, to sort of worship the point at which the world is coming to an end, and they believe that that's the location where it begins. Also in Death Valley, Arthur finally goes onto the spaceship. We unfortunately don't really find out anything else from this bit. Arthur kind of goes in, sees the exact same stuff that the army colonel saw before, and then leaves. The only difference being that the red light's gone, but still didn't bring the gear to be able to get down into the main section of it. He played around with the idea that the crystals are meant to be like a reflecting beam, but he couldn't get his torch light up high enough to test that, but he didn't think it was likely anyway. I'm a bit disappointed with this inside the spaceship stuff so far. And finally, the stuff that saves these chapters, the stuff that actually is really interesting. We're introduced to a new character called Reuben. And Reuben's story is really sad. His mother's just passed away a couple of weeks before, and he's living with his father. and they're both trying to come to terms with the fact that this woman who's such an important part of both their lives is gone, and his father's not doing very well, and it's really sad seeing, a father in that sort of emotional turmoil. It's not explored enough in media, I think, and I feel it's pretty touching. Reuben, however, comes across a set of silver little spider robots in an alley on the way home from the library. And the robots have just finished dissecting a rat. There's a rat cut open with its organs sitting next to it. And the spider robots are like a little egg-sized and shaped silver thing with some legs coming off of it that are also silver. And a blue light where the eyes should be. One of these spiders crawls up behind Reuben, and he can feel it on the back of his head. And then he feels numb, and he collapses, and he can't control his body for a bit, until finally another one crawls over him. It might be the same one, I think it's a separate one though. Crawls inside a coat pocket of his, and then Reuben feels the urge to go home. And it seems like they're controlling him, but I'm not sure they're directly controlling his movements and stuff, so much as influencing him, making him think he needs to go do things. And now Reuben is convinced that he needs to find a guy whose voice he can hear in his head and deliver the spider that's in his pocket to him. On the TV, he sees an interview with Trevor Hicks, the author and the president's one-time confidant, and realizes that that's the man he's meant to be delivering the spider to. So that's really interesting. We've got these spiders that are clearly part of the alien thing. Maybe they're the little replicator robots, or they're just here to take control of humanity. Either way, they now have Reuben, who's going to go to Washington, hunt down Trevor Hicks, and presumably try to get him infected by these spiders as well. So that's the most interesting part of this set of chapters, the one that's got the most big, far-reaching consequences going forward, I presume. As for the rest of it, it's all fine. It does bring up one question that I think is interesting. There has to be something special about Earth to bring the aliens here, right? Often in these stories, we don't really cover that, but I think I trust Greg Bear enough to give me an explanation. Especially because he's brought up the asteroid belt. There's more resources in the asteroid belt than there is on Earth, I'm sure. And it's probably easier to get for a race like this. If all you care about is building more spaceships out of resources, you can probably get it all in the asteroid belt. So what is on Earth that is so important? Perhaps it's liquid water, but I'm pretty sure there's ice out in the asteroid belt anyway. Maybe we won't get an answer. Maybe I shouldn't think into it that much, but that's the main takeaway I had from these chapters. So while these chapters weren't particularly engrossing and super interesting, I think it's just because of the high from the President Crockerman-based chapters we did previously. These chapters just kind of failed to deliver on that public outcry and suspense and tension that those chapters built for me. But I'm hoping our next set will. So for our next set of chapters, we're going to read chapter 38 all the way through chapter 46. So that's going to take us from, in this copy, from page 188 to page 220. At that point, we're going to be a good 3/5 of the way through the book. I might try and do a couple more episodes of this just to power through and get this series finished. If you guys have any suggestions in the comments of what books to do next, we could move on to Anvil of the Stars, which is the follow-up to this one, but also a perfectly fine standalone book, apparently. Or we could read something else. I'd love to hear about it in the comments. If there's any episodes of this you missed, the playlist is up here. I'd love if you could leave a like and subscribe. Thanks very much, guys. Remember, keep reading.